Leading the league right now here on Hot Stove. Adnan Burkin for Matt Vasgersian with Harold Reynolds, Lauren Shahadi, the entire outstanding crew. And JP Morosi right now joins us as we are leading the league with the massive news of Carlos Correa. 13 years and $350 million. JP, San Francisco gets their man. They needed a big fish, needed a star. They strike out on Judge, but they do get Correa. Tell us how this all came together.
Adnan and Harold, good morning again. This is a massive deal in Major League Baseball. And to your point, as soon as the Giants did not get Aaron Judge, the industry knew that something big was going to follow for the Giants. They had the planning and the capacity to spend, and here was the superstar out there who needed a superstar deal. And when you think about the future of the Giants, Brandon Crawford has been the loyal shortstop for them for a decade. He's been a stalwart for that organization, but his future as a shortstop was eventually going to move to a different position. And so now you see one of the largest contracts in the history of the game by guaranteed value. And I think Harold made a great point earlier in the show about the length of the deal and the number of deals we have seen this offseason beyond 10 years. And certainly Aaron Judge came in at 9 years, but Trey Turner, Bogarts, Correa, superstars being paid like superstars. This is the deal the Giants needed to sign to bring in a superstar, and you see it there. This is, in 3 of the 4, certainly, up the middle shortstops and paying them to later in their career. And Harold touched on this. We'll see if there's still a shortstop in year 9, 10, 11, or in the case of Correa, 13. But the belief is they're going to be able to be productive hitters late in their career. And also, if you want to find a way to get a superstar, this is now the level that you have to spend to get the elite player. Certainly, Harold, it's also very good news now for Dansby Swanson, who could certainly play the market and see how things unfold in front of him. Do the Braves still find a way to play at this level? Or do we see a team like the Cubs, the Cardinals, maybe the Red Sox jump back into the market for a shortstop? Or the Minnesota Twins, who no longer have Carlos Correa. They were prepared to spend, Harold, more than $200 million to keep Correa. As John Heyman had reported, of course, that didn't happen that way. And now it appears to me there's a very healthy market there for Dansby Swanson. When you consider the teams that are still out there, the Cubs now needing a superstar position player as well, I have a hard time believing that Swanson's number is going to be under $200 million simply because of the amount that's been spent on other shortstops out there in the market this offseason. If Trey Turner is at this level, if Correa is at this level, if Bogarts is at this level, how could you say Swanson, who, by the way, to the really key point on this screen, the number one important stat for Swanson, 162. He plays every day. The durability for him, the defensive ability are both extraordinary. I believe Dansby Swanson is going to be a $200 million plus player for the total value, whether it's with the Cubs, Cardinals, Twins, Red Sox. There's a healthy amount of interest right now in Dansby Swanson.
So I hope everybody takes this the right way, all right? Because I think Dansby, one, is a winner. He's won a World Series. That's the biggest number he's got. And he plays every day, all those things you said. But I do think that people are viewing him as a step lower. You look at, you got Trey Turner, obviously Correa, and Bogarts. They got their big deals. And I think people are kind of viewing Dansby like, well, he's not quite those guys.
Yeah.
Am I right with that? I think that's how people are assessing him. So I know you're saying you can't see him getting less than $200 million. I just don't know if he's getting garnished the respect that he has really deserves at this point in time of his career.
Right. Well, and I think that's fair, Harold. Yeah. When you think about there is a gap, but there is still a pretty big gap. There's a lot of distance, let's say, between Bogarts' 280 and 200. And I think somewhere in that range is where Swanson's going to settle in. Is it 8 times 25? You know, that would be a nice round number that would certainly get you to 200 and give you a lot of, I think, credence and credibility at that number for Dansby Swanson. He is, for me, you look at his ability to age gracefully and still be able to defend at a high level into his mid-30s. I think Swanson can do that. And the Braves, it really appears to me that if they were going to sign him at that level, it would have happened by now. The other point I'll make, and Chandler Rome is in speaking about the free agent market overall for shortstops. Chandler Rome at the Houston Chronicle reported last night what the Astros had offered Correa a year ago. And when you compare what the Astros offered Carlos a year ago after the 2021 season and what he made from the Twins this past year and now what he's going to make with the Giants, basically Carlos doubled his money. It's basically more than $200 million in excess of what the Astros had offered him. He now has guaranteed. And the key thing, too, with this contract with the Giants, guys, no opt-outs, no trade clause. He is there. And this is part of what, and certainly Scott Boras is the agent for Carlos Correa as he was for Bryce Harper. It's sort of the same idea. The commitment to the city. And when you have the longer-term deal, it certainly flattens out the AAV, but it also says, I'm going to be there. And Bryce Harper said that with Philly, Bogarts said that with San Diego, and Correa said that in San Francisco. And a final note about these two franchises, Padres, Giants, previewing a bit of what this exciting year is to come. How about two great superstars? The final weekend in April, the inaugural series in Mexico City. How about that? Padres and Giants, two super marketable stars globally to have that series played the final weekend in April in Mexico City in a beautiful new stadium there, Estadio Alfredo Harpelú. What a great story that's going to be. Two great superstars, shortstops, playing in the same series.
It is going to be cool. By the way, Swanson, a year older than Correa, best shortstop by outs above average, if you go by that defensive metric, but certainly a case can be made. Both those guys are obviously huge stars. Speaking of stars, JP, I would have thought Rodon, initially, if you'd asked me, I'd say, well, $25 million a year. I remember Abe said to me more like $30 million a year. Then I thought maybe 180. Now it might be 7 for 210. Apparently, our buddy John Heyman's saying there's a big gap between what the Yankees are offering and what Rodon's camp wants.
Well, so a couple things about that, Adnan. I think, number one, the Yankees and their willingness to spend now has the chance to really be a difference maker for them going forward. And also their willingness to part with the draft pick. Not every franchise is comfortable giving up the pick. And that's, of course, what you'd have to do to get Rodon. Now that we know the Giants, as we documented earlier in the show, have filled out their rotation without Rodon, it does not appear that he's going back there. So you look at the available options. Yankees, Dodgers, we'd have to mention very prominently there. The Cardinals, John has reported on the Cardinals a bit as well. But I really believe that at the end of the day, as we're seeing this market take shape, that Rodon is going to be either a Yankee or a Dodger unless something unexpected happens. And certainly we've had some unexpected moments in the course of free agency this offseason. It just appears to me that the Dodgers have been very quiet by their standards. They've lost Bellinger. They were lurking on the periphery of some other deals. Of course, I believe the Dodgers have the capacity to spend and the need to get a major starting pitcher. They've had some different issues with their rotation, of course, in terms of guys staying healthy and being available. Rodon, who pitched 100 more innings than DeGrom in 2022. And you consider his reliability, the durability between Rodon and what DeGrom had done in recent years. And the Dodgers did have interest in Jacob DeGrom. They did have interest in Justin Verlander. Guys, it just looks like to me, Yankees, Dodgers, again, the right teams are involved. And whether Rodon hits $200 million is probably the next question. But he is, for me, a very valuable guy. And if you're going to give up the pick, this is where I think, whether it's Evaldi, who's still out there with the QO attached to him as well, if you're going to give up the pick, you might as well get the player for multiple years. I don't like the idea of giving up a pick and signing a 2-year deal. To me, that doesn't make a lot of sense. If you're going to give up a draft pick, you might as well get the player for the long term. And the Dodgers and Yankees both have the wherewithal to do exactly that.
The wherewithal and the bandwidth to break it all down. Our man, JP Morosi. Great stuff, John, as always. Great to see you.
Thanks, guys.
And
All the
we'll
best.
talk soon.